Hello, everyone, and welcome to Molehill Mountain, episode 91. Andrew Eisen here, along with Zachary Knight. Hello, Zachary.
Hello, Andrew. Hello, everybody out there.
Yep. So let's see. I am feeling a little peaked and flushed because I was out at the march today. There were not as many.
Nice.
There were not as many pugs as I only saw one pug, and I didn't
Yeah.
fall over it. But
Okay.
I was behind some guy who had wasn't a terrier, but a small dog about that big, and he was holding it kind of like you burp a baby. The dog is just kind of riding on this guy's shoulder, looking behind him, and we're all kind of packed in the street like sardines, trying
Yeah.
to funnel down the street to actually start marching, but there's a bunch of us just kind of stuck. So I'm like standing right behind this guy, and there's this dog staring at me. I mean, adorable little guy, but just
Yeah.
staring at me. So that's my
Yeah.
funny dog story from this March.
So were you was it the school shooting march, or was it a Black Lives Matter one?
No, was there a Black March?
I don't know, because there was a
That's bad scheduling.
well, I don't know if there
But
was
no,
or not.
it was the March for Our Lives march.
Okay. Yeah,
Well,
because
that's
I just
the March for
I
Our
just
Lives
couldn't
march.
I just couldn't remember if there was a Black Lives Matter one going on because of the shooting in Sacramento, where the guy was shot in his own backyard, or well, his grandma's backyard.
Yeah, the I actually saw somewhere that the brother of that gentleman was at one of the March for Our Lives marches, um, and there's a video going around of him. Uh, because there's police presence at all these to organize traffic and get people, flowing in the right direction, making sure they're not run over by trolleys and stuff like this. And this poor gentleman was basically going down the line of police officers, looking him dead in the eye and saying 20 times, referring to the number of times that weapons were discharged in the direction of his now deceased brother.
Yeah.
It's from what I've read, we don't know how many times he was actually hit, but we do know that they fired 20 times at a guy in his own backyard that wasn't armed again. So that is horrific, and very sorry for the guy's pain, because that's a hard video to watch, because
it is.
You totally feel for that dude, and that sucks. But the march, well, I'm in San Diego. The march here went off without a hitch. It was a bright, sunny day. I didn't fall on a pug, so. And what's difficult? I exercise on Saturday morning, so I go to the gym on Saturday mornings, and the march is at 10, which is downtown. And I work out at a gym north of me. So I went to the gym, and I'm all sweaty, and I'm cleaning myself up as much as possible to get, and I have to park like a mile and a half away so that because it's downtown, there's nowhere to park.
So you have to march to the march.
So I have to march to the march and then march my ass back to my car when I'm done. It's kind of exhausting showing support for these things. Boo-hoo, right?
Yeah.
But so I'm still wearing it, because I wear a bandana on my head to keep this, because my head sweats a lot and it gets on my eyes.
Yeah.
And my hair looks terrible when it's wet because it's just all plastered to my skull. So I was still wearing my bandana, and I look pretty goofy wearing it, but that's all right. And the tail of the bandana helps keep the sun off my neck, so that's all nice. But I hope there wasn't an official Black Lives Matter march for today, because that's just really unfortunate scheduling.
Yeah, I didn't hear about one, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was one in the next few days.
But I did see
probably would have kept they probably would have let the March for Our Lives have the time before they did any. So
well, I mean. I saw plenty of signs that had BLM hashtags on them, so it's not like we have to keep these things separate, because there's a lot of intersection between these two topics. Hey, we don't want to get shot by guns. Hey, you know what? Neither do we. Let's come together, by our powers unite, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, there is somewhat of a conflict because Black Lives Matter is mostly aimed at the cops and governments. Like, we don't want to be shot by the government, whereas
That's
March
true.
for Our
Well,
Lives is we don't want to be shot by other people.
yeah.
So
I think we can all agree that we just don't want to be shot.
yeah.
But yeah, two different movements, but I think a lot of
But yeah,
overlap.
there
So
there is a lot of they do share a lot of similarities in messaging,
yeah,
but yeah, but but they're both talking to the government and both talking about how we can reduce the number of people being killed unnecessarily.
right. Because
Yeah,
I hope we can at least all agree that the number of people is too high a number,
yeah,
and a smaller number would be preferable, ideally zero, although that's kind of like saying, well, ideally we'd have no auto wrecks every year. Well,
yeah.
yeah, but that's kind of going to happen. So, but I have no idea what the hell the gun death statistics are. And even if I did,
Yeah.
some might argue, well, it's not right when talking about this to include, like suicides or accidental death. We should only be looking at gun murders. But even if you are only looking at gun murders, whatever the hell the number is, it's way too damn high.
Yeah, and I really don't like some of the statistics that are thrown out there around school shootings because a lot of the organizations are, and there's one particular, and I talked about it on Facebook and Twitter before, but this organization claimed that there's after they claim that like there was 19 school shootings in 2018 alone, and I looked at their numbers, and there were two that could be classified as a mass shooting at a school. The rest of them were an accidental discharge by a school resource officer, or shots from off campus that hit the school buildings, and a couple of were drive-bys and aimed at specific people in a parking lot that happened to be the school parking lot. And
Mm,
yeah, they just kind of basically anytime a gun was fired and a bullet hit school grounds or a person on school property, they counted as a school shooting, and that's kind of a
yeah.
dishonest.
Well, it's at the very least colloquially misleading, because when
Mhm.
you say school shooting, regardless of whatever the actual official definition may be, no idea, but when you say school shooting, I think for the vast majority of people that conjures up a pretty specific definition of a
Yeah,
bad guy going into a school with a gun and shooting people on
yeah,
purpose.
it brings up images of Parkland, Sandy Hook,
Mhm.
Columbine,
Yes.
all of that. When you say school shooting, people don't think, oh, a school resource officer accidentally discharged his
Discharges firearm.
weapon. Yeah,
I would. I mean, it's pedantic, I suppose, but I would consider like a drive-by if it happened on school grounds. It was like shooting at the school. I'd consider that a school
well,
shooting. But
but the difference is that with typically with a school shooting, there's not a specific target. They're not going after a specific person. They're just trying to cause as many deaths as possible.
mm,
Whereas with a drive-by, they're targeting a specific person, but there's also collateral damage. Other
yeah,
people get injured or die during those, but they're almost always a specific target
yeah. So I
that
mean,
they're shooting at.
yeah. I
So
mean, I don't know how often the weeds you want to get. I mean, it depends specifically on what point you're trying to make, whether there's value in delineating between a school shooting and a shooting that happens at a school. You
yeah,
know,
exactly.
um, it all really depends on what you're talking about. But
Yeah,
still, I think and hope that we can all agree that too many people are shot,
definitely.
and
Yeah,
hopefully we can find something that will work. Because just the I know it's cliche to look down your nose at the whole thoughts and prayers thing,
yeah,
but it's true that doesn't actually do anything. I mean,
Yeah.
it's condolences are nice, sympathy, empathy, all that is great, but at some point, if that's all you do, and especially when you do other things that arguably exacerbate the situation, it comes off very hollow.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah.
So, um, let's see what else. Monster Hunter had its big update
Yeah.
where Deviljho was introduced, and I actually finally had time to play that this afternoon. So I fired
Did
up
you
the
get
game.
to beat him?
I did.
Nice.
And it was some really sloppy play because I'm not great at Monster. I can play Monster Hunter. I'm not like an
Yeah.
expert at it. If you've seen my videos, you know. But I haven't played it in like 2 or 3 weeks because
Okay.
I've been playing Zelda since the beginning of March.
Yeah.
So I was a little rusty, and when I started playing Zelda, I kept trying to dodge roll like you can in Monster Hunter. Zelda
Yeah.
don't dodge roll. So,
Yeah.
Bokoblin's coming at Link about to swing. I'm like, yeah, X or B or whatever. And Link looks at me. He's like, dash? What do you want from me? I'm like, oh, yeah. So I finally get used to that, and I find myself slamming on the wrong button in the Monster Hunter.
Okay. So, is Deviljho more difficult than that crystal dragon you fought? I watched that video recently.
Yeah, I would say so. Deviljho is what makes him difficult is he's really, really mobile.
Yeah.
Especially when you're using a slower weapon like I do, the charged blade, I think it's called. A lot of times, by the time I swing, he's moved. Which is annoying when you're trying to target like the tail or something. You run around behind him and he turns around. You're like, well, damn it! And you run around behind him and he turns around again. You run through his legs and he turns around. We're like, hold still. He's also he's really tall, so a lot of the times about all you can hit are his legs,
his ankles. Yeah.
So you're constantly hacking at his ankles, but he dances and hops up and down a lot and stomps with his feet, and so you'll swing at his leg and he'll like pick up his leg to stomp, and yeah, it's a fun fight. I really did enjoy it, and I apologize. I have the video about half edited. I'll finish it tonight, probably upload it tonight. It'll be available tomorrow. I apologize. The sound isn't as good as my more recent videos because I forgot to turn off the when I was recording my footage, I forgot to turn off the game audio, which means I can't do that super groovy auto ducking thing that I do where when I talk, I bring down the game audio so you can hear what I'm saying. I forgot to do that when I was recording, so the sound isn't great, but I'm not too terribly talkative during this video, so it's not a huge problem, I guess. But I'm about done with Monster Hunter, I think.
Okay. Yeah,
I've been playing it for 200 hours, so I've beaten all the monsters.
I see these the images of Deviljho, and the thing that stands out to me is his little baby arms, and it's like he looks like a T-Rex, but with even smaller arms, and it's just it's pretty crazy. And but no, it's I think it's cool that they added, they brought back a fan favorite monster and everything. So
I hope that Capcom will continue. It'll be interesting to see if Capcom treats Monster Hunter World like a platform that they constantly add to. Hello, Chaos. Or if they put in Deviljho, they put in maybe Zinogre and a couple others, and then they release Monster Hunter World DX or something
or whatever.
Like that, Monster Hunter World G, which has a bunch of new subspecies and new monsters and new weapons and things like that. It'll be interesting to see what Capcom does with that. But I very much enjoyed my time with Monster Hunter World. Probably going to move on to other things now because I still need to play Zelda. I've been playing Zelda, but need to play through Zelda. Yakuza
So
6 comes out. Is coming out in August. That was just announced this week, I think. So man, I'm going to play probably relatively few games this year
yeah,
because
'cause-
all the games I'm playing are super damn long, are like 150-hour games. So,
yeah,
and then I think Valkyria Chronicles 4, is it 4? It comes out
yeah.
maybe in the
For
fall,
the next one.
something like that. And that I really liked Valkyria Chronicles. Uh,
Yeah,
2 and 3 were on the Vita, so I never got to play them. And then Revelations or whatever it
whatever
was,
it
I
is.
heard was terrible, so I never
Yeah.
bothered with it.
Well, and it wasn't. They changed the gameplay up.
Valkyria Chronicles in name only.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Valkyria Chronicles, and honestly, I need to finish it.
The first one?
Yeah, the first one. I'm one of those players that I'll play something for a while and then get distracted and play something else, and then I just never get back to get around to playing it again because there's so many other shiny things for me to play.
Oh, Chaos points out that not Vita, PSP, where the 2 and 3, and 3 was never even localized. So, okay, thank you for that. Yeah, so a lot of cool stuff coming out the year. I gotta be honest, Zelda Breath of the Wild is, I think, probably going to end up being my least favorite Zelda game. Doesn't mean it's bad, doesn't mean I'm not enjoying it. I am enjoying a lot of it, but I'm not enjoying a lot of it too. It's one of those games that it's like I don't want to play. I don't want to start it, but once I start it, I end up playing it for hours.
Yeah.
It just gets in its own way a lot for me. I think my biggest problem is the world is too big for Link's. Have I left the plateau yet?
He's been playing.
Yes.
Just on the plateau for like 300
How do I get
hours
off
so far.
I can't find a cooking pot to get cold drinks so that I can go in the snow. Yes, I am long since off the plateau. Yeah. Really, I think some of my biggest main problem with the game, I think, is that I'm the kind of guy who did not like the sailing in Wind Waker. I found it boring because there's nothing.
I don't like the sailing in Wind Waker.
You sit in the boat and you wait until you get there. There's nothing to do. Breath of the Wild
they added all those little mini games in there, but they just aren't enough to make the sailing interesting.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally there's like those pineapple monster things that chase you, but they never catch you. Occasionally there's a storm, or there'll be like some barrels that you could ride over, but in Breath of the Wild, I find that Link's movement speed is just too slow. Frustratingly slow for me.
Yeah.
Because I see a point, I want to get there, and it takes forever to get there because Link is so damn slow. Now you have a horse, and I think the horse goes fast enough. But the problem with the horse, or a potential problem with the horse, is the game tries, in my opinion, to be a little bit too realistic with the horse. Because you can whistle for your horse, but if your horse is too far away, it can't hear you, so it can't come to you. So if you wander too far, if you see something up a cliff where the horse can't go, you may end up on the other side of the mountain. You whistle for your horse and your horse can't hear you. If your horse can hear you, it's dependent on your horse's ability to actually get where you are. Sometimes your horse can't actually reach you. Like if there's a cliff in the way, because your horse, it's not Skyrim. Horse does not go straight up a cliff. So you whistle for your horse because you want to get somewhere before you have to go to bed and get up for work in the morning. So you whistle for your horse. Your horse hears you. Your horse can get to you. Your horse gets to you in real time. You have to sit there and wait for your horse to actually work its way over to you. So a lot of times you end up running to meet your horse halfway, because otherwise it's going to take a minute for it to actually reach you, depending on how far away it is. Which is kind of annoying. In other Zelda games, when you whistled for Epona would just run up behind you like she was stalking you from the trees the entire time.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild, when you get off a horse, the horse is like, "Oh, we're done here. Okay, I'm gonna munch some grass. I'll be right here if you need me." In the other games, you whistle and Epona just runs up right on your six. It's not realistic at all, but it's a video game and it works. So I find the travel in the game off-putting at times, and I thought about, well, I enjoyed Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain, which is nowhere near as huge as Hyrule is in this game, but it's a large open area that you have to run across if you don't have your horse. But here's the difference. Snake is a lot faster than Link is. Number two, Snake can sprint indefinitely, and he's nearly as fast as his horse. And I don't know how they managed to get the animation of him sprinting to not look completely absurd. I mean, it is silly, but it's not completely absurd, so kudos to them on that. But Link, at the beginning of the game, he can only sprint for 4 seconds before he's winded. I think that's why the open world in Phantom Pain didn't bother me, because not only can he sprint really fast and indefinitely, but he also has a horse. He can also hijack vehicles.
Yeah.
And also, the horse in Phantom Pain, from what I remember, wasn't quite as stubborn about going up steep, rocky inclines like the horses in. So you could go up some pretty steep, rocky paths in Phantom Pain that you probably are not going to be able to do in Breath of the Wild. Although I did figure out a way to trick my horse into getting down a mountain. Basically, you get up to the edge, and then you turn your horse around and kind of back it up, and it just kind of falls down the cliff with you on its back. It kind of works as a way to get down there.
Nice. Yeah, see, traveling in video games is always one of those things that I turn on auto run any chance I get. It's like, if a game has auto run, I turn it on, because 99.9% of the time, there's not a single instance where I want to walk.
Yeah.
I'm just always running, and it's like, it's ridiculous.
It doesn't mean the game is bad. It means it wasn't tuned specifically to my tastes in gaming. That said, once I reach an area that I like, Kakariko Village or some of the other places with people and quests and stuff in them, then I'm having a blast with the game. I didn't want to leave Kakariko Village. I was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to explore out into the world. It's boring. It takes forever. Another thing, the combat in the game isn't really doing it for me. Maybe it's just because I'm too used to how Monster Hunter works, and I keep trying to dodge roll, and that just doesn't work. But I think it's a combination of just some of the enemies are just damage sponges if you don't happen to have really high-hitting weapons. And your weapons are constantly breaking, which is just kind of annoying to me. I mean, I get what they were going for, but it means that I just don't value anything I have, because it's just going to instantly break. So I mean, there are a couple shrines. I remember what I was going to critique. There are a couple shrines where it's a test of strength, and it's just some robot dork. And there was one where I think one's called a modest test of strength, and then there's a major test of strength. I couldn't beat the major test of strength because I literally broke every single weapon I had over its damn head. And all my arrows. And I'm thinking, okay, well, obviously I need to come back later when I have more powerful equipment, more powerful swords. And so I'm going to have to find powerful swords and then hoard them, not use them because they'll break, and then immediately, once I have enough of them, just warp back to that shrine to take care of it. I'm like, I don't really care for that approach. The other problem I have with the shrines is, I may have made this analogy before, but the shrines, with the exception of the ones on the plateau are a little weak, I think. But most of the shrines I've gone through so far are really good. The problem I have with them is they are one room, just like one room of a dungeon. Dungeons and Zelda games typically have what, 20 rooms or so, give or take. Imagine if instead of a dungeon with 20 rooms, it was just 20 rooms littered throughout Hyrule. So I get to one of the rooms, I beat it, and I'm like, oh, that was great, and now it's over, and now I have to wander around until I find another one. I may have used this analogy, but to me, it's like eating a single spoonful of ice cream. It's good. I like it. It's really, really tasty. I'm glad I ate it. But by itself, it's really unsatisfying because I don't want a single spoonful of ice cream. I want an entire bowl or cone or whatever.
Yeah, and I think those kind of things would be good if they were probably used a little less sparingly. A while back, I played It'll Do. Have you played It'll Do? It's a Zelda-like. It's a Zelda-like puzzle platformer, and it's a comedy game. But its focus, it has. There is the main castle, which you've got to navigate and defeat the final boss in. But then there's 3 specific dungeons because you get 3 different weapons: an ice wand, a portal wand, and then a fire sword. And each of those are in a specific dungeon, which you solve. They're like a normal Legend of Zelda dungeon. But scattered throughout the world are these little one-room puzzles where there's like a trophy or like a card or a heart or something like that at the end of it, and those things are really fun because you can use the tools that you've found and solve them as you're working your way back to the main castle, and I think that is a pretty good way of doing it. But It'll Do also had the the benefit of being a relatively small world, so you're not traveling hundreds of video game miles between these rooms and stuff. But yeah, those kind of things can be good as long as they're well designed and probably used maybe a little bit more sparingly than what Zelda's shrines are. But
there's a lot of them. Now, I don't want to come off too harshly on the game. There is a lot I really like about it. And as much as I don't like traveling through the world of Hyrule most of the time, I love the world of Hyrule. It is really, truly wonderful and incredibly well designed. There are a lot of as enormous as this damn thing is, you almost don't need the map because wherever you are, at least so far, you are always within sight of major landmarks like Mount Lianru or whatever it is. Ganon's Hyrule Castle, where Ganon is like evil cloud of swirly swirlies. Death Mountain. What I'm guessing is probably the cliffs of the Gerudo Valley. Wherever you go in this world, you can kind of triangulate your position and orient yourself by these major landmarks, even though they're way the heck off in the distance. And just the variation in terrain and the variety of different types of environments. I mean, it's a lot of trees and grass, but there's also deserts and there's swampy areas and there's a lot of different elevations. There's like these deep canyons that long gone rivers must have cut through the land. It's wonderful map design, probably one of the best large open worlds I've ever seen. I just don't like traveling through it sometimes because it takes too long. But sometimes, one thing I do like about the horses is they will naturally follow roads and pathways. So what you can do is you get on your horse, you say, "Go, horsey," and your horse will follow the road, which allows you to just kind of take in the scenery. And at times that is kind of cathartic and nice to just really appreciate the land. So Zelda Breath of the Wild is admittedly a mixed bag for me, but there is a lot that I do genuinely love about the game. So I don't want to come off too harsh on it. But there are a lot of niggling things too. For example, just weird stuff like when you open a chest and there's a sword in it and your inventory is full, there's no option to immediately swap something out. It's like, nope, your inventory is full and the chest closes. So you have to go into your menu, pick a sword that you don't want, throw it away, and reopen the chest. And it's like, really? Because that happens almost every single time. Because you're constantly picking weapons really up off the ground. So you get to a chest and you're like, please be a rupee, please be a rupee. No, it's a damn sword again. And getting a sword, even if it's like, oh, it's the fire sword, it's like, who cares? It's just gonna break, you know. It's and that's just not the attitude you want when opening a treasure chest in Zelda.
And the last time I played a game that had weapon durability, it was goodness, what is the game called? I can't remember what the game's called, but it was a Super Nintendo game, and it was like, it's an underground tower, which is kind of an interesting concept, where you start at the top and you have to work your way down because the tower at some point sank into the earth, and you find your way at the top. You find yourself in the top of the tower, and then you have to work your way down, and the weapons have a durability, like a certain number of hits you can hit something with before it breaks. And but one of the good things was, it's like so it, say level 1 through 10, you're using a short sword, and the short sword breaks, but at the end of the level you get like an unbreakable short sword, and then you can use that in the next set of levels, or you can use the more powerful weapons that break in the next level, and it just keeps on going down like that. And that was always that was something that I really liked, because you if you wanted to use a more powerful weapon, you had to manage how many hits you have left, and then keep a backup supply. And then if everything breaks, you still have a slightly weaker but unbreakable weapon that you can use in an emergency. And
I think it might, for me, someone that let me hit the chat here real quick, because I've been ignoring you guys. Hello Lalai, hello Diego Makula, welcome. Let's see. Chaos says clear Va Mendo, one of the shrines, to get Revelie's Gale. It will make climbing a ton easier. Okay, I have no idea where that is, so I'll stumble across it eventually. I do have a climber's bandana, which makes Link barely slightly faster at climbing. Here's another problem with the game. It rains too damn much. The rain is gorgeous, impeccable art design. It feels wet. It is so well done. It's some of the best rain I have ever seen in a game.
Yeah.
But it rains too damn often. It rains like twice a day. Either that or I'm just incredibly unlucky. When it rains, you can't climb because you keep slipping off rocks, which means a lot of times you're stuck on a ledge on a cliff until it stops raining, or you can't go where you want to go. And it's super annoying, especially with the frequency with which it rains. Anyway, Chaos says use fast travel as needed. Oh, I do. You can largely avoid combat. I do. Use the Master Sword for the major test of strength. Okay, when I get it. I don't have it yet. Matthew says the Master Sword doesn't break. I think I might like it better if you had an unbreakable weapon, and the at least if some point, maybe not instantly in the game, but fairly soon in the game, you get an unbreakable weapon, and the other weapons are just special weapons. Because as Matthew's pointing out, they're resources, and that's true, but they're all resources, which it's just kind of irritating. I would like it better if I just had a generic sword, and it's like, well, I'm going to switch to the fire rod for this ice monster. The fire rod is, it's limited time use, like bomb arrows or fire arrows. I only have so many of them before I have to switch back to my regular sword. But sometimes you run into like major tests of strength where you it's like, well, I just broke all my weapons over your head. I guess I'll just leave now and
Yeah.
have no weapon. Probably should have just let him kill me so that I could just restart at the last saves. So they had all my weapons back. The other problem, again, here's another problem I have with the game with how slow travel is. That particular shrine is like on an island out in the middle of a big body of water. There's several ways you could go about getting there. Link has limited stamina, but you could make a ton of stamina restoring elixirs and just swim out there. That would take a really long time though, because he swims really slowly. There's I don't know, but I would imagine there is a sailboat nearby, so you could get on the sailboat and use your leaf to move the sailboat and sail out there slowly. You could use your Cryonis power to make little ice blocks and stepping stone out there. God, that would take forever. Or you could climb up a nearby mountain and use your paragliding sail thing and sail out there, which, well, the travel time of gliding down there is quite significant. It's got to be at least 70, 80 seconds. Also, climbing up the damn mountain takes several minutes. So it just takes, it's like, I just want to go over there. It's going to take 10, no matter what I do, it's like 10 minutes to get over there. And I'm impatient. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
Fräulein says Minecraft has weapon durability. Yes, and Minecraft is garbage. No, I'm just
and Minecraft weapons are pretty easy to come by, and the weapons are, exactly how long a weapon's going to last before it breaks, and you can always just craft a new one and have like 6 really good weapons. Whereas Breath of the Wild, you have to find them, and they're pickups, they're drops and stuff, and you never know exactly how much durability it's going to have before it breaks, and so. That's the problem I would find with the weapon durability.
The entire climbing set will speed up your climbing. Oh, so there's more than just the bandana, huh? Okay. Haven't seen it yet. The champion's weapons will break, but you can get them remade. That sounds boy, that's got to be balanced just right. Because if they just keep, because I'm not going to bother. Because if I have to go back to town every damn time to constantly reforge these weapons, I'm going to be seriously annoyed. Matthew says that the Master Sword, I guess, can only be obtained after you get 12 or 13 hearts. I guess I should start getting more hearts because I've been pumping stuff into stamina. Although there is a statue that will exchange your... you can redo that through a statue somewhere, so that's not it's above Rito Village. Okay, I don't know where that is. I haven't been there yet. Matthew also points out that you can use the stasis thing to hit a rock or a tree log or so. Basically, you lock something in place, you smack it with a stick to build up kinetic energy, then you stand on it, and once the stasis lets go, it goes flying, and you can go traveling across the environment like that. That's true. You can do. It's not exactly accurate, but you can do that. Yes.
Yeah.
And we're caught up on the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, also, the voice acting. Well, Zelda's really the only one who's spoken in the game. Yeah, she's as I hate to dump on any individual person, but her performance is not good. It's genuinely bad. I heard a lot of people say, "Oh, she's terrible. Oh, she sucks." It's like, "Oh, come on." And I was like, "Yeah, it's not good." Yeah. I mean, it's not like Tales of Symphonia, whatever that one game is, bad, but it's subpar. Also, the memories that I've seen, I've only seen like 3 memories so far. They're kind of boring. Although there was one where she's like, "Eat this frog. Here, eat a frog." That was kind of funny. And the more they do these cutscenes, the more it's really odd that Link doesn't talk.
Yeah.
It kind of makes him seem
Must
like
have
an
been that
ass.
frog. Yeah, the
Maybe it was
poison
the frog.
of the frog permanently damaged his.
But he kind of comes off like an aloof jerk who's just not listening or doesn't care. You know, at least, he doesn't have to talk. Make him sign. Maybe he's literally mute and he just uses sign language.
See, that was one of the fun things about Super Mario RPG, because Mario doesn't talk in it, but he pantomimes and he emotes when he's talking to people, and that's a lot of fun to actually watch. But yeah, when you have a silent protagonist and they just kind of just stand there when everybody's talking around them and to them, yeah, it's kind of annoying, especially when the people have to repeat what you supposedly said, and that always drives me nuts.
It's almost like he's Lassie. What's that, boy? Timmy's in the well. Especially in this game, because Link does not have anyone speaking for him, like Abby or Fee or Fire or Fofum. Chaos says Rito Village is in the Tabantha region. I don't know where that is. West of Hyrule Castle. Okay, cool. I know where the Zora domain is. At least it's north, I think, because I found a bunch of Zoras splashing around in ponds, and they're like, "Hey, you should go over there." I found another Zora. He's like, "Hey, you should go over there." I'm like, "Oh, I guess I should go over there." I didn't, because I was busy doing something else. Pat's asked, "How many shrines have I found?" 25. 20, 25,
like
about 2 dozen
in the game.
I think there's 120, but and maybe 60, 70 Koroks, something like that.
Okay.
Didn't Link talk in the Philips CDI games? Yes.
And that wasn't a positive.
Matthew says it's time. # make Link talk, or at least communicate in some way.
Yeah.
I actually kind of liked. It was one thing that came off pretty well in the last one, Skyward Sword. He didn't talk, but he did emote. He had a lot of facial expressions that communicated what he was thinking and feeling. In this game, Link is completely dull. And Zelda's emoting her heart out, and it's coming off like bad college theater. And Link's just standing there, like he's unimpressed with her.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's enough Zelda. Let's actually get to topics before we have to stop the show.
All right.
So our first topic today is there is a game called Metropolis Lux Obscura, which is not a great name, but oh my gosh, the product description is wonderful. So get this. Metropolis Lux Obscura is a unique game with a film noir atmosphere, seductive, wanton women, and dirty, dangerous secrets. Gameplay is based on a motion comic and a non-linear plot mixed with match 3 puzzle fights.
Okay.
There's an interesting mix. So I don't know how well this comes off, but you can kind of see the art style that they have going there. And let's see, and they have match 3 puzzly fights. So okay, and they also have girls in underwear. So there we go. Now the description goes on. It says, the city is rotten to the core. You can't even tell night from day in this hell where big money runs everything. And the best way to prove you're right is with brute force and match 3 puzzle games. John Lockhart walked through the prison. Hang on. There we go. John Lockhart walked through the prison gates of Free Man after spending years imprisoned as a supposed murderer of an old friend. He returned once more to the city where it all started, intent on figuring out who it was that framed him for the murder and make them pay in blood for the crime. It'd take some work with the key witnesses dead, but that just meant he'd have to flush out every rat from hiding. So, sounds very film noirish with match 3 puzzle Old friends and new enemies search for the truth, for loyalty and sanity, but all you can find here is redemption, betrayal, and death. Welcome to Metropolis. Okay, so I'm intrigued by Noir plus Match 3, but we have a fairly standard description until we come to the bullet points. And this is where it gets good. Bullet points. Beautiful comic art. Gorgeous, sexy girls. 12 mental disorders and bad habits to unlock. 12 mental disorders and bad habits to unlock? What?
Yeah,
what?
That's interesting to see what exactly they mean by that.
That bullet point kind of sells me right there. I want to know what that means.
Yeah.
12 mental disorders and bad habits to unlock. Is one of them picking your nose? Anyway, next bullet point. Amazing soundtrack and audio effects. Rich and dramatic story, professionally voice acted. An addicting match 3 puzzle battle system with upgradable traits. Obscenity and sexism. That's an interesting thing to have as a bullet point. Obscenity and sexism. And 4 different endings. Well, they've got my attention. They also got the attention of Kotaku, who asked the developer about this. They didn't ask about 12 mental disorders and bad habits to unlock. They asked about obscenity and sexism.
Mm-hmm.
And Metropolis developer Ivan Lightkin. And unfortunately, there's no actual direct quote, but here, I'll just read the paragraph from the Kotaku article. Ivan explained that while there is, quote, no actual sexism inside, contains sexism. There is no actual sexism inside. Obscenity and sexism. I mean, this is a list of stuff in the game, right? Not a list of stuff that's not in the game. Don't tell me that 12 mental disorders and bad habits to unlock is not in the game. That would make me very sad. Anyway, he explained that while there is, quote, no actual sexism inside, still someone can think that women are treated as sexual objects in the game, end quote. He added that the sexism bullet point is to, quote, warn, quote, people who can be offended by such stuff. Nowadays, people are offended by anything, end quote. When the author of the article, when I asked how he reconciles the game not, in his mind, being sexist and the game treating most women like sex objects, he explained. He described the warning as a protective measure to ward off, quote, hypochondriac people who may be disappointed by passive female roles as sexual objects. Girls are fully dependent on men in the game.
Now, I got to pause right there. Does this guy even know what hypochondriac means?
I don't know. I mean, I get what he's saying, and I think he's an ass. Although I'm a little
a really weird word choice.
Although I'm really hesitant about that because I don't have the actual full quote. It's partial quotes kind of fit into a paragraph, but it sounds like that is so weird. Our game has sexism. No, it doesn't actually have sexism in it. We just put that there for people who would complain about the sexism in our game. What? No, there's no sexism, just sexually objectified women. What? Yeah. Tell me more about the 12 mental disorders and bad habits that I can unlock.
Oh, yeah, it's just... I guess...
It sounds like clickbait. It does.
It kind of does, yeah. But I can kind of see his thinking, where he's coming from, because he is making a game with objectified women, and that is one of the things that feminist frequency with the tropes versus women. That was one of their main topics, was women as objects, and yet the game treats women as objects in it, apparently, and so you could say that
I haven't played it.
Contain sexism. Yeah. So, but the fact that he's trying to say there's no actual sexism, so is he saying that the men in the game are not sexist, or I don't quite understand.
I
guess I would have to see the game in action or something.
I admire someone owning up to what they created. It's like, okay, I created a noir story, and like a lot of noir stories, it has a lot of femme fatales and sexually objectified women, and women that are not much more than props to develop the man's story. That's what it is, and I know some people are sick of that, so I thought I'd put that bullet point on there just in case you're tired of this stuff. You can see that and go, oh, well, okay, I appreciate you putting that out there. But that's a little weird, but I mean, I appreciate that, and I also like the fact that he seems to be cognizant of what he's actually doing. He seems to understand. I mean, he says, there are passive female roles as sexual objects. The girls are fully dependent on men in the game. So he seems cognizant of that, but he seems to not want to call it sexism, even though was he referring to something else when he made the bullet points? It really comes off. I don't know if this is true, but reading that, it comes off like one of the oh, those whiny, snowflakey SJWs, or I'll just put that there because they're constantly complaining about stuff. So, dude, don't be a jerk. I mean, make the thing you want to make, and own up to the thing that you made. It's okay. It's actually okay to use tropes. If you want to do the classic damsel in distress thing, do it. It's okay. In and of itself, it's not a problem. It's the fact that it's the only thing that's ever done where it becomes problematic. But you could also say, well, I'm doing a noir, and that's just what noir is. A lot of the times, yes, but challenge yourself to break out of that mold. See if you can do strong female characters. You may completely screw it up. Who knows? You may not even want to try, and that's okay too. But he comes off as I hate to label people just after I've read a chopped up quote, but he seems like kind of an ass. I'm still very curious about this 12 mental disorders and bad habits to unlock.
Oh, definitely.
That definitely has my attention. But anyway, enough of that. Let us move on to something that you pointed out, which is now we've, if you've been following us since Game Politics, we're all familiar with video games are evil. They cause people to be violent, and the reason we have so many shootings is because people play violent video games and then act it out in real life, blah, blah, blah. Been hearing that for years. But Zachary linked me to an article talking about a book that just came out that's anti-video game in that sense, but coming at it from a completely different angle and what I have not heard before. So
this is a
tell us about this.
This is a totally new angle, and I kind of think I've heard people make this complaint in the past, but never in this specific way. And this is the title of the book. The author is Christopher Paul. He's the chair of the Department of Communication at Seattle University. And he recently wrote a book titled The Toxic Meritocracy of Video Games, Why Gaming Culture is the Worst. And Yeah, no, there's a link uh, to Amazon, and this is the description that Amazon gives. It says an avid gamer and sharp media critic explains the meritocracy's negative contribution to video game culture and what can be done about it. Video games have brought entertainment, education, and innovation to millions, but gaming also has its dark sides. For the deep-bred misogyny epitomized by Gamergate to the endemic malice of abusive player communities, gamer culture has had serious real-world repercussions ranging from death threats to sexist industry practices and racist condemnations. Now, this first paragraph, I'm completely fine with.
That's the thing that
pretty
happened.
avid or accurate description of certain sections of the game community and a very visible section of the game community. But it goes on, it says, in the toxic meritocracy of video games, new media critic and longtime gamer Christopher A. Paul explains how video games focus on meritocracy empowers this negative culture. Paul first shows why meritocracy is integral to video game design, narratives, and values. Games typically valorize skill and technique, and common video game practices such as leveling build meritocratic thinking into the most basic premises. Video games are often assumed to have an even playing field, but they facilitate skill transfer from game to game, allowing certain players to build an advantage. And this is where it starts to get a little iffier, because
so far I'm like, well, okay, that's an interesting perspective, and I can think of some examples off the top of my head. For example, the non-jokey usage of the
get good.
You know, that can be used for fun and light teasing, but there's definitely a very toxic and abusive element to that subculture of gaming. So I can so far I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Go on.
Yeah. And so it continues on. It says the toxic meritocracy of video games identifies deep-seated. That's the title of the book. Identifies deep-seated challenges in the culture of video games, but all is not lost, as Paul argues. Similarly, meritocratic institutions like professional sports and higher education have found powerful remedies to alleviate their own toxic cultures, including active recruiting and strategies that promote values such as contingency, luck, and serendipity. These can be brought into the gamer universe, Paul contends, ultimately fostering a more diverse, accepting, and self-reflective culture that is not only good for gamers, but good for video games as well. And this is
where it gets weird for me.
This is where it gets weird, yeah. And this is in a interview with Campus Reform, and he explains this a little more in depth. He says, we expect the most skilled, hardest working player to win. The typical narrative in a game is a rags to riches story where the player propels the character into a key role and perhaps even attains godlike status. All of those things shape our expectations and focus players on individuals rather than the collective. As actualized meritocracies, video games quickly became really toxic spaces where players are focused on individual glory rather than creating positive spaces for interaction. And it goes on and says, not all is bad. Paul notes, pointing out that games like Mario Kart and Mario Party are more cooperative and based on luck, contingency, and serendipity. Moving away from merit allows communities to develop on different terms, giving an opportunity to build something else, something new, something that has features other than the endemic toxicity that comes with meritocratic systems. Now, it's interesting that he brings up, two games.
He seems to be referring exclusively to multiplayer games.
Yeah, So, and I can see how this is, because you go and play a first-person shooter, and you've got all the whole noobs and people yelling out slurs and stuff as they teabag you after they sniped you at the spawn point, and and yeah, there's a lot of problems there, and and I could kind of see how this is, because in college we used to play Unreal Tournament, and I always sucked at it because I never played first person shooters, and so I was always terrible at playing the game, and so I was constantly trounced. But I played with a really good community of people, so I never really experienced a toxic atmosphere around it. But in games where like online games and MMOs, I have experienced that kind of stuff, that kind of had that kind of experience, and one of the reasons why I don't play MMOs. But he brings up Mario Kart and Mario Party as more of the style of game, or that he that he points to as realizing his vision of what would make a better gaming environment. And what I find is that with Mario Kart in particularly, especially later versions of it, Nintendo has added specific features to kind of balance the game. Like if you're the longer you're in last place, or towards the back of the pack, the more likely you are to pick up red and blue shells.
Yeah,
and
you get better items.
You get better items. Yeah, and the further up in front, you get the weaker items, like the green shells and the banana peels. Weapons that you can't target specific people as easily. And then in Mario Party, where it's almost exclusively about luck. There's there are games of skill in Mario Party.
But a lot of it is you landed on the give all your stars to the other player space. Ha ha ha.
Exactly, yeah.
Dude, I rocked all the mini games and now you have all my stars. It's not fair.
Yeah. And
I raced the entire track in Mario Kart, a lap in front of all of you, and the damn blue shell. I hate luck because I don't have any.
See, and that's one of the things is that with luck, and I can understand where luck has a role, where random generation, random numbers, have a role in video games, because you can't leave everything in the power of the player. You've got to add some kind of challenge, and a lot of times that challenge is most often met, or the challenge is most often designed to include some kind of random result. Where, so like say Pokemon Go, because I play that a lot. There are certain elements that you can control to catch the Pokemon, but it almost always boils down to a random number deciding if you actually caught it. You can give the Pokemon a berry, which will increase your odds. You can throw a curveball, which will also increase your odds. You can shrink the little target circle to increase your odds. But once that ball hits the Pokemon, it's the random number that decides if you actually caught it or not. And that to me, I think, is a fair element. And yeah, it can be really annoying. Like my son and I, we both went and caught Pokemon, or caught a legendary, or we both went and fought a legendary monster, and I ended up catching it, but he didn't, even though we both had the same number of tries to catch it. But I caught it because the random numbers were in my favor at the time. It was less about my skill and more about the random number. And even randomness can be unfair to certain people because there's no way you can control it. And so I really want to see, if Mr. Paul here vision for gaming as more Mario Kart and Mario Party, it would be very interesting to see what gaming would be like if that's all it was, because games of skill are the kind of games that we really like. And so just as an example, you've played did you ever play the Oregon Trail on the PC?
Oregon Trail,
The original, the original,
Yes.
the Oregon, not Oregon, but Oregon.
Yes.
I've played that too, and that is almost exclusively a random results game. The only real control you have is what you choose.
Hunting. And
There's some hunting in it, but
and it's that you get to a river. Do you want to ford the river? Or do you want to? I forget what the other option is.
Yeah, but just recently, I've picked up this is a card game version of Oregon Trail, and boy, it's just as brutal as the original.
Honestly, I don't think I ever beat Oregon.
Yeah, I never beat it either. But my son and I and my sister-in-law, this game is for 2 to 6 players. But so we had three players, and the game is played in rounds. You play 5 trail cards, and that ends a round, and then you move on to the next round. And we never got past the second round. We played 2 games of this and never got past the second round in it. So I based on the layout where you put things, I think the game usually lasts about 10 rounds, or is supposed to last 10 rounds before you can actually complete it. But we didn't get past 2 rounds of it because we either got stuck at a river because we didn't roll the right dice number, or our wagon broke and nobody had any spare parts because we were randomly dealt supplies at the beginning of the game, and so we, it was fun, but we didn't have any real control over the outcome because it was all based on the luck of the draw, the luck of the dice roll.
Most tabletop games are almost exclusively luck. I mean, it just depends on the roll of the dice. You roll the die, you move your little piece, and you do whatever the square says. Most games have no actual strategy or skill. I mean, poker, for example, there's some semblance of, I mean, it's mostly just the luck of the draw, literally, but there is some skill into knowing what your best move is, but really it just comes down to luck.
Exactly. And I think with poker, the skill is your ability to bluff, your ability to read other players. The skill in poker is not in the cards itself. It's in your ability to influence and read the other players.
Yeah.
And that can only take you so far, I guess.
And if you just keep getting crap hands, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if you play video poker, video games with poker in them, like the Yakuza games have poker in them, and you can't really bluff or read the other players. They don't really exist or emote in any meaningful way. So it's just a matter of, well, I got a crap hand. Here's a good hand. Hopefully it's better than what the other players.
Because
I don't want to slam this guy because he wrote an entire book, and I'm not completely clear on what his argument is, what the conclusion. Therefore, we should do this or this should happen. I mean, I don't get a sense that he wants to pass laws banning competitive games or anything like that. But I think there is an argument to be made that competitive games, games that are skill-based and one shall rise kind of games, can exacerbate the already existing toxic personalities of the people who play them.
And
I don't think these games cause that toxicity. I think that's more of a societal and social.
Not at all. And it's like it's also like the anonymity of the internet. It doesn't create jerks. It just lets jerks be themselves without the consequences, and that's part of the problem. And I think that's one of the problems of where gaming is that a lot of the times when you're playing online, they don't know, the people don't know who you are. They don't know where you live. They don't know, and they don't know you. And so you can be your jerk self and not get in trouble with it, because a lot of these a lot of gaming communities don't have the proper tools to deal with that kind of behavior. So but so that's something that we're definitely getting better at, but it's not something that's really keeping up with that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking personally for this argument, I don't like games of chance and serendipity or whatever other words he used. The more random stuff, the less I like it. And I'm a single player gamer, so he seems to be exclusively talking about multiplayer games anyway.
Yeah.
I'm a very I'm not a social gamer. I'm a
Well, and just speaking of random chance and luck, I've been watching a let's play of Stardew Valley, and this is a single player game. There's some skill involved in it, but most of it's just it's just a get in a routine and do the routine. But there are elements of luck in it, and in this let's play, the YouTuber has been trying to find a specific artifact because he's trying to 100% the game, but he's been trying to find a specific artifact, and he's been looking for this artifact for 8 hours now in this game, and hasn't been able to find it, and you can tell just how annoyed he is that he hasn't, he's been looking for it for 8 hours now and he can't find it. And it's because it's all based on luck, a random generation. Because you go and you dig up a little spot that has an artifact in it, and you have like a 0.8% chance of finding this artifact in it. And he hasn't hit that right random number to pop out this item. And
in Monster Hunter World, I've never seen a great gunfish. I see gunfish all over the place. So I've spent a fair amount of the time just fishing, trying to find a great gunfish, because it's the one item I don't have in my combo list. But also in Monster Hunter Tri, I spent about somewhere between 60 and 70 hours mining for one damn thing. Not even hunting monsters, hitting a rock with a stick, trying to get the right thing so that I could make the one sword that I didn't have.
Yeah.
But luckily, that was something that I could do while doing other things. It was, I'd do mining runs, is what I'd call it. I'd load into the level. I'd run around, hit all the mining nodes, and then I'd stand there and I'd go do something else for a couple minutes while they respawned. Then I'd hit them with my stick, which took a minute, and I'd put the controller down. And that way, I'd just keep doing this over weeks. I just always had it on, and I'd just be doing these runs, and I calculated it out to being probably close to 70 hours. Which is so sad, but I got my damn sword, and that's my digital plaything, and that matters.
So, do you think that creating games that relied more on let me just double check the 3 points here. Goodness, what were they again?
Serendipity was one.
Yeah, serendipity, contingency, luck, and serendipity. Do you think including those and basing more game mechanics around those three elements, do you think that would improve gaming, the gaming community?
No,
because that seems to be what his main thesis here is that changing the way games are played would change the culture around games.
I think there's a decent mix of games of skill, whether single player or multiplayer, games that you win by being skillful, by practicing and getting good. But there are also games, like Mario Party and Mario Kart that are, while there's elements of skill, a lot of them really come down to chance.
Mm-hmm.
Some who prefer the latter may want a more even mix, because I'd say games of skill outweigh games of chance just in sheer numbers.
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with because I don't care for games of chance. But I think the problem is not if what you're looking at is the toxicity of the player base. I don't think it's the game causing the toxicity. If you took that toxic player base and moved them over to Mario Kart, they would still be toxic. They just scream and yell and harass and throw out racial slurs once they get hit by the blue shell of death. So I don't think changing the game for most toxic players would change the toxicity. I think you have to change the society and culture and upbringing that creates the toxicity in the person in the first place.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that, and and I think to me, I think there are benefits in some game, changing some types of gameplay, and I think part of it is in making some games more cooperative would probably be a good thing. But that I wouldn't go so far as saying that all games should have a cooperative mode. But I think that when you play together with a common goal, so take something like Oregon Trail or just recently released that Prison Break game. I forget what that one's called now.
A Way Out, I think.
A Way Out, yeah.
Now that's a good example.
Yeah, because
I was thinking of like Splatoon, and while you're playing on a team, you're still playing against another team,
players. Yeah,
and you could just have 4 toxic people being toxic to 4 other people.
Exactly, but if you're playing a game and it's just the players, or all players involved are on the same team, that can certainly change the dynamic, because if you're rude and mean to your teammate, they're less likely to want to play with you in the future or want to assist you out even in that one playthrough.
Yeah, then you
and
can't
so it
play
changes.
the game.
Yeah, and that changes how you interact with other people.
Yeah,
but whether that will change how you interact with people in competitive mode is a totally different story.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think there's some value. I think it would come down to like the individual person. It's like, what, this person A over here who's being a toxic jerk in game X.
Yeah.
I think game Y would really help this person not be such a jerk. I don't think there's a one size fits all solution.
No, there's not. And then you have the problem of trying to convince the toxic jerk to go and play this other game where they can't be as much of a toxic jerk. It's like, how do you convince them to do that? And it's not likely to happen. So
yeah, but I mean, we've had games where it's everybody work for the greater good against the big bad, like World of Warcraft. It's you, the players, are kind of banding together to fight the computer, really.
Yeah.
But we've seen plenty of examples of people just being really horrible in that game.
Yeah.
So griefing, the kids like to call it, or did years ago. So it's certainly an interesting perspective. It's one I've never heard.
Yeah, and like I said, at the beginning, was this topic is often talked about on the fringes, like the externalities of the topic. But yeah, this is the first time I've seen anybody try to blame the games themselves, or I guess I don't know if he's really blaming the games.
I haven't pinned down exactly what he's doing, because I
would have to read an excerpt from the book or something, because to get a better feel. But yeah, it's just such an interesting experience. Such an interesting
an
thing.
interesting point of view, and I
Yeah.
think definitely worth discussion. So, but that's enough discussion. Let us move on. I hear you saw Thor Ragnarok.
Oh yeah, I saw Thor, and I loved it.
Good.
So yeah,
That means you have good taste in movies.
yes, I do. So yeah, Thor came out in what, November?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my wife and my daughters, they went to go visit her sisters. One of her sisters is having a baby, and they were throwing a baby shower for her, and so she took all my daughters with her. So it's just me and my two sons, and so I'm just like, you know what? Thor's on Redbox. Let's go rent Thor, and I got Thor, and we watched it, and it is such a fun movie. Yeah, I talked about it a little bit on Twitter, and in the broad strokes of the film is they took what was fun about the original Thor movie and built upon that. They took what didn't work in the Dark World and learned from that, and then made probably the best Marvel movie to date. I think it is probably
Definitely up there. It's definitely one of the favorites.
It is definitely one of the best ones so far, and I, part of it is just how different it is from all the other Marvel movies, because you have the Asgard scenes and a couple of Earth scenes, and you see familiar characters, but it throws all those characters into situations that you really, that they weren't expecting, that they weren't prepared for. And we all know from the trailers and everything that Thor loses his hammer. It actually breaks. His sister Hela breaks it. She catches it and then shatters it, and it really just kind of breaks Thor too. Yeah. And so he is totally out of his element at this point, and then he gets shipped, and then he gets accidentally sent off to Sakaar, and ends up fighting the Hulk, and boy, that was one phenomenal fight. I gotta tell you, he fights the Hulk. You have the funny introduction that you see part of in the trailers where he's like,
he's a friend from
he's
work.
a friend from work. It's like, hey Loki, look who it is, and Loki's just all like,
I need to get.
I don't know these guys. Yeah, it is just
like Loki's having PTSD flashbacks looking at the Hulk.
And then and the fight is just amazing, because the Hulk is just in pure rage mode at this point. He's been the Hulk for 2 years straight, not a single break as Banner, and he goes into these fights in rage mode. It is basically all it is, and just kicks Thor's butt, and Thor kicks his butt, and it's kind of a back and forth thing, and probably the best part of the fight is when the Hulk picks up Thor and then just does the whole smack him back and forth on the ground thing, and then Loki stands up. He's like, "Yeah, you know how it feels now," and it was so much fun. But yeah,
damn funny too. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and
Taika
Waititi is just hilarious as Korg. He does the motion capture, he does the voice, the entire gamut of being Korg, the rock guy, and when you first hear Korg, you don't really expect him to be this soft spoken. Hi, I'm Korg, and type character, and it's just it's just a really funny funny situational character, and so yeah. But so in the end, you've got all the you got these familiar characters that we know and love. We got Thor, we got Hulk and Banner, and they play well together. It's like the Thor and Hulk and the Thor and Banner, they have such both of those pairings have such great chemistry, and so it's a lot
Yeah,
of
it's funny
fun.
because
And
everyone fell in love with Banner and Stark and their
yeah,
science bro shtick. But yeah, Banner and Thor get along really well too.
yeah, they
And
do.
I love Banner and Valkyrie constantly go, "Do I know you?" And like, yeah, you
Yeah,
seem familiar to me too. It's
yeah,
weird.
exactly. Kind of makes you wonder because you see Banner and Valkyrie, and they're just kind of talking together, and Valkyrie and Hulk know each other pretty well
Mhm.
as well, and it kind of makes me wonder, because they don't really touch on it in the movie, but in Planet Hulk, in the comic, and in the animated Planet Hulk, Hulk and hooks up with one of the other one of the like princess or whatever it is of Sakaar, and it kind of makes you wonder if Hulk and Valkyrie are an item or something, because that's just kind of the way it plays out a little bit in the undertones. Um,
It came off more of siblings, big sister kind of
Maybe,
relationship.
yeah, because in the end, when Banner finally hulks out in front of her, she's just like, "Oh,"
Oh.
it's like, I know now. I know,
Although
but
he does have a bit of a misfire at
yeah,
first.
which was hilarious too. Um, But and then you have Loki, who also has really great chemistry with Thor, and part of that is just because we've been built up with that through let's see, 2 Thor movies and an Avengers movie, and so we have a really strong history between these characters. They've worked well together, in all these things, and so very good mix, and then. Yeah, and Loki and the other characters just all work well, and I think Scourge is probably my favorite new character out of all of them, because
Oh yeah, Carl
yeah,
Urban just commits to that. It's great.
yeah, he does, and he comes off as this kind of a buffoonish character, and really I think that's the way he's playing it. He's a buffoonish opportunist, and so he pairs up with Hela basically because he doesn't want to cause
Die.
yeah, he doesn't want to die, he doesn't want to create
Yeah, I mean,
waves,
she kills the
and
Warriors Three, right? Or well, two of the Warriors Three right in front of
right in
him. He's
front
like,
of him.
"Oh, I just sweep the floors."
Yeah, he's like, he gets down on his knees, it's like
Yeah, it's like I.
as soon as one of them dies, and she's just like, you have good survival instincts, and I kind of expect, I halfway expected him to take up the mantle of executioner, because she does make him her official executioner, but he never actually executes anyone.
Yeah.
He gets into those positions where he's being commanded to execute someone, and then something happens, and he gets out of it, and you always see this look of relief on him, and I think it's hilarious because he comes across as somebody who doesn't really like fighting, which is a very different characterization of the character
Oh
from
yeah,
the
yeah.
animated stuff and the comic books. Because in those, he's a pure villain. He's I'm a villain, I'm going to kill you type person. But in this one, he's just kind of, I want to survive, but I don't want to be mean to people.
Yeah, yeah. He wants to be the hero.
Yeah.
He doesn't want
Uh,
to be the villain.
Yeah. Well,
And he does
I
become
don't
a
even.
hero in the end. So.
But it doesn't really come across that he wants to be the hero either. He just
Well,
wants.
he wants to be loved.
Yeah, he wants to be
He
loved. He wants
wants
people to like him, because
right. Like
at the
there
beginning,
you
when you first introduces, he's trying to seduce these 2 Asgardian women, and he's just
go.
like,
This is my stuff.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah, oh, what did he name his rifle?
Death and Troy, because together they destroy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
Oh, I
great.
love that line. That was such a great line. But yeah, then at the end, you have his redemption, where he saves the people on the ship. And but yeah, and I think in the end, this is probably one of this movie really has some major stakes, going on in it, because Hela's just killing people, and I think the consequences of this film are really going to carry through with in Infinity War and beyond.
I just hope Thanos doesn't immediately kill all the Asgardians at the beginning of the movie. That's gonna
because that's one of the things you've got to wonder, because we've seen
Asgard
in the trailers,
is a people, not a place. Well, now Asgard is nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Because you see in one of the trailers, Thanos gets a hold of the Tesseract, and you see him shatter it to get at the stone inside. And we know that Loki picked it up, because when he was going into the vault, he walks by and he's just like, "Ooh, I should probably hold on to that." You don't actually see him take it, but he's going to take it. So yeah, you gotta hope that the people, the Asgardians survive, because it would kind of suck to just have after surviving Hela, they instantly get destroyed 10 minutes later by Thanos. So that would totally suck.
Now, if you go ahead and destroy Xandar.
Xandar.
Even though I will miss John C. Reilly and Glenn Close.
Oh yeah.
But I imagine he gets the Power Stone there. So.
Oh yeah, he's got it. He's got to get the Power Stone. And I think the Power Stone is actually one of the 2 stones you see in his gauntlet in the trailers.
It's the Power and the Space Stone.
Yeah, the Space
Stone. That's the Tesseract, right? Space Stone.
Yeah. One, so you see those 2, and so something happens in Xandar, whether he actually completely destroys the planet or just destroys whatever vault it's being kept.
Maybe it was all like stealth mode. He like snuck in there. That could be great.
That would Thanos be not really his his style, but
tiptoe. That'd be great.
Yeah. But yeah,
one interesting thing about Thor Ragnarok before the movie came out is a lot of people were super duper excited about Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's gonna be so cool! I'm just gonna walk away with the movie." And I was watching the trailers. I'm like, the trailers aren't really doing anything with the character. She has like one line and all that. She's like, "Let's go." I'm like, that's not really selling me on the character.
Yeah.
But she has probably the best entrance of any character in all of the Marvel films, where she shows up and she's like, "He's mine," and she falls off of her ship's ramp.
Yeah,
and I'm like, okay, I love this character now.
Yeah, very. Yeah, she and then there was the she picks up this big bottle of liquor. It's like this thing's bigger than her head, and she's like, "Okay, you have until I'm done drinking this to convince me." To do whatever you want. So Thor starts talking and she's just guzzling, and it's like 3 seconds later the bottle's empty and she starts walking off.
I also love the fact that Thor sees Hulk naked, because Hulk's in a hot tub and then gets out and he's like, oh god, I just saw it's in my brain now.
That was another good scene. But Thor, Hulk is just hilarious, and the Banner is too. These guys are,
and
as much as I want
the Doctor Strange cameo worked really nice.
Yeah, the Doctor Strange cameo worked really nice, and that was one of the things. The trailers don't really sell it as Doctor Strange is going to be a major part of it, but everybody was just kind of hoping he was going to be. But it was kind of a there was part of the trailer. He was in part of it, mostly around the scene with the beer stein, the refill.
Oh yeah, well that scene was actually I think one of the post-credit scenes on the Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah, it was. But the scene with Doctor Strange where they're constantly teleporting and Thor just can't reorient himself every single time. He's like constantly falling over and breaking stuff because he's so disoriented. And then at the end Doctor Strange is about to send him off, and it's just like, don't forget your umbrella, and Thor's just like, all right, and he summons his umbrella because it's Mjolnir disguised as an umbrella, and you hear it, for like 2 minutes or a minute and a half, just stuff
crashing,
breaking, and
sorry,
and then he gets his umbrella, and oh, it's so great.
And then Loki comes in. He's like, I've been falling for 30 minutes.
Yeah, and then Loki pulls out his little daggers and is about to attack Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange just go away and just pushes the portal over Loki. It's like, I don't have time for you.
Kate Blanchett's wonderful as Hela too.
Oh yeah, she's
vamping the hell out of it.
Yeah, she just chews the scenery every time she's on. It's just and she basically, I think she was just told to play just pure evil, and that's what.
Yeah, I mean, she's. I love her speech in front of the Asgardians when she says, "It's come to my attention that you don't know who I am. I'm Hela, goddess of death." And then she rambles on and on about how she's going to make a new, better Asgard. And then the remaining warrior 3, whatever his name is like. He's like, we will not do what you say, whoever you are. And she says, whoever I am?
Weren't you listening?
Were you not listening to a word I said? Love it.
Yeah, totally good. And Goldblum, just Goldbluming it up, and
that's why I want to. I want to see Jeff Goldblum and Benicio del Toro interact.
Oh yeah, because
I want to see these two hang out in Infinity War.
I know, because you gotta, the Collector's got to show up at some point during Infinity War.
Well,
he has the ether.
Because Thanos has to get the
ether,
the reality stone.
Yeah, that one's reality. But yeah, so he's got to show up at some point.
Yeah.
And then Jeff Goldblum is apparently hanging out with Daryl now. So I actually got to watch that short. I saw it was on YouTube, and I actually watched that, and it was really good. I thought it was pretty hilarious. But yeah, Goldblum is just Jeff Goldblum. He's a very funny actor, and and it's not it's not that he's typecast. It's just people love that they just love that character of his, and they let him be that.
It's just like no one else. I mean, it's kind of like Christopher Walken. There's just nobody else who's like that. Which makes it really fascinating to watch.
Yeah, and they create characters to fit Jeff Goldblum rather than trying to fit Jeff Goldblum into other characters. So,
or if he's already a character, they just try to fit that character into the movie, like Jurassic Park 4 Part 2 or whatever they're calling it.
Yeah,
Jurassic World 2.
Yeah,
Fallen Kingdom, whatever it is. I have a feeling that scene that we've seen in the trailer where he seems to be like testifying in front of a hearing of some sort as a character witness, maybe for dinosaurs. That's probably like the only scene in the movie he's in. That's kind of what it feels like, but
kind of, yeah. We'll see how that goes, but yeah, he's a very funny actor, and I enjoy him.
So, moving on, did you see all of Jessica Jones?
Yes, I watched all of Jessica Jones, and I gotta say, Jessica Jones and Punisher are probably my 2 favorite shows so far. In all of Marvel Netflix.
Yeah, I think I said this on Twitter when I finished it earlier in the week or last week, and whenever I watched it. This, I believe, is my favorite of all the Marvel seasons.
Yeah,
and which I actually came off kind of surprised that I liked it so much, because right now I tend to have a problem with unlikable characters. Mm-hmm. And Jessica Jones, like every single character in it, is just a horrible person.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Jessica is just kind of a terrible to everyone around her.
She's so mean to Malcolm, and
Malcolm is probably I mean, he's got problems too, bit of a philanderer, it looks like they're implying, but he seems to be the most decent person there. Trish has just gone completely off the rails.
Oh yeah, she's gone nuts, and
to the point where if she becomes Hellcat, even Punisher's going to be like, dude, what the hell? Jerry Hogarth is awful in her own right.
Yeah, she's definitely, she's become more sympathetic of a character.
Sure,
but she still is a rather off-putting jerk to everybody around.
Yeah, she is. We understand why she is the way she is, and we can even sympathize with why she became what she became and what she does. But what she does is still pretty awful.
Yeah.
However, even though everyone in the show is pretty awful, I still loved it. It's I guess just because you're not a good person doesn't mean you're not a good character. Yeah, and I just found it really fascinating. Still, I think the show did not need to be 13 episodes. Paced better than a lot of the Marvel shows, but still probably could have been 2 episodes shorter.
Yeah. And I think what I really liked about this was, and I really like this about all of Jessica Jones, because both seasons of these are very personal stories.
Yes.
They are stories around Jessica herself, and you everything she does is in service of overcoming some trauma or finding out something about herself. The first season all about dealing with Kilgrave and what he did to her, and then this season is all about trying to figure out who she is, why she is what she is, and finding closure. And that's what I really liked about it, and it's why I really liked Punisher too, was because Punisher was about not just punishing, not just vengeance, but his motivation was very personal in nature. The enemies he was going up against were personal to him and not just some nebulous guy. Like with Daredevil, for all of its strengths, there was never that personal connection between Daredevil and Fisk, the Kingpin.
It's not. It's also not as about something as both seasons of Jessica Jones and Punisher are. But both of those and Luke Cage are actually about something. There's a Daredevil is more, it's a fun comic booky show, and it's a fun comic booky show. Season 2 has some problems, but the first season's solid. Half season 2 is good, but a lot of the other shows, Luke Cage, both seasons of Jessica Jones, the Punisher, are have a theme, a thesis, are actually about something, have something to say. Sometimes not as eloquent as I would like. Sometimes it gets a little muddled, but I really appreciate that it's not just, hey, let's have a fun superhero show, but it's actually saying something. And that, especially in Jessica Jones season 2, that theming, basically how people deal with trauma and how that affects the people around them is remarkably consistent throughout all the major characters of the show.
Yeah.
And it really resonates very well.
Yeah, and that was and Iron Fist is a really, is the low point of the show.
So low.
And really, and it comes down to, because Danny Rand just, there's no motivation for his character at all in that. And he just kind of shows up, is a jerk to everybody, screws everything up, and is somehow supposed to be the hero of this thing. I found myself more interested and invested in the Meachums, and their story than anything involving Danny Rand. Because the Meachums are just they're characters who are just trying to, they've had this entire life their success and everything is built up, and then Danny Rand shows up and screws everything up for them, and you're just like, man, Danny was just, he just kind of crapped on their world and called it a gift.
Frustrating shame, because I think one of the things that galled and frustrated me the most about Iron Fist was the showrunners genuinely did not seem to recognize what a terrible person Danny Rand is.
Yeah.
I genuinely got the sense that they didn't realize that they'd just written the most horrifically entitled ass on the face of the planet, which is a shame, because that could have been what the show was about,
Yeah.
It could have really focused on that privilege and entitlement. There's a lot of, and they actually touch on it a little bit in the Defenders when Luke Cage starts talking to him.
When Luke Cage has Iron Fist tied to a chair and they have that conversation,
or even later when they're just talking back and forth. He kind of puts Rand in his place, saying that you're a rich, entitled, privileged dipstick who only sees things through the lens of your own privilege, and you're being a jerk about it. That could have been the thesis statement of the entire Iron Fist show, except I don't think they realized that Danny Rand was terrible.
Exactly.
I mean, so off-puttingly terrible that I had to just pause the show and go take a walk and call my sister and leave an angry voicemail. Anyway, back to Jessica Jones season 2. Another thing I really loved about the season is I really loved the villain, her mother. I don't know who that actor is. I'm sure I've seen her before, but
she's a very good actor. She plays the role very well, and
talk about the prototypical tragic villain, the villain that is at the point she's just irredeemable, but you still kind of want her to somehow get a happy ending or fight through it or somehow
something. And they tease that towards the end. But with season 1 of Jessica Jones, you had Kilgrave, who's just he's unrepentantly evil. He has an ability
in a way. But he's still unrepentantly evil.
Yeah, and he has an ability that he knows how to use and uses it for his own personal gain. Whereas in season 2, at the expense of others, and in season 2 of Jessica Jones, you have a villain who you expect to be unredeemably evil or unrepentantly evil, but then she shows up, and you find out just how messed up she is, how she's mentally unstable. She's trying, she's been trying to control it, but she just, she has those experiences.
Her superpower is essentially uncontrollable violent rage.
Yeah, she's basically the Hulk without turning green, and so she's you can see her conflicted nature. You can see her not enjoying going into these rages, but she knows she can't control them, and it's it's kind of heartbreaking when it goes in. And so,
and I credit the actor for that, because she just sells the hell out of it.
Sells it, and the first half of the season just kind of builds up to, okay, this IGH has got to be this completely evil organization, and the scientists are going to be terrible people, and it turns out to not be so. They're people who
are trying to do the right thing and messing up over and over.
They've got an ability that they can use. They've got this scientific knowledge that they can use, but they don't use it well, and they mess up other people's lives. And you can see that they are repentant. Whether they can be forgiven for what they did is a whole nother story, but they are trying to correct their mistakes in some form or fashion. And And so yeah, it's you know, definitely great characters all throughout this. Some of them you hate. The other private eye guy, I forget his name.
Oh yeah, a little
He,
underdeveloped. I thought
yeah,
that character is just kind of there.
yeah, he's kind of there, just kind of moves certain plot points around.
You
But
never get to
yeah,
know that guy really. He's just
yeah,
the rival PI guy.
yeah. But even he, you can see, he has those scenes where you can kind of understand his motivation. But
Yeah, but he's too
I do
broad. He's
find
more
that.
of an archetype than anything else.
Yeah, I guess so. But when he tries to snipe, the villain, and I'm trying not to spoil things. I don't know if we mentioned who the villain is at all, but he tries to snipe her, ends up hitting Jessica Jones, and you can kind of understand why he would do that, but it just doesn't seem. We don't know enough about him to understand why he would go so far as to try to assassinate someone himself rather than try to
Yeah.
hire someone.
I mean,
Or
yeah,
why
his
he's even
friend
doing
gets
this.
killed, but his friend is someone who we've never met before.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
so
it's
we don't
like,
know their relationship. We don't know.
yeah, so it didn't
Yeah,
really sell. Um, uh, One thing I might criticize is some of the B plots, like Trish's adventures and Jerry's adventures, their story, are not completely divorced of the A plot, but they're not quite as integral as maybe you would want them for a serial
yeah.
show like this.
Especially
That's
Jerry's, I think.
Yeah,
That one.
hers is about as tangential as you can possibly get without being a complete other show.
Yeah, because
Meanwhile, on the
basically,
Jerry Hogarth show,
yeah.
that said, I did not mind ever cutting to her because
Oh
I
yeah.
loved that story.
Yeah, and it was a nice change of pace. Like
Yeah.
they used it in a way to let you take a break from the Jessica Jones story, uh, because Patsy or Patsy's
Patsy,
Trish,
whichever.
her story was pretty much completely mingled with Jessica's, whereas Jerry's was that break, gave you that opportunity to digest what happened with Jessica Jones while advancing a specific character through her
Mhm.
own arc.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so it was a great way to give Jerry more screen time and allow her character to develop, because I know, just based on that, that they want to continue using her character throughout, even though they did give her a terminal illness, but
Yeah.
but it's not one that's going to kill her any in the immediate future. So
Yeah, she could be around for another couple shows.
yeah,
I'm going to be very sad to see her go though, because
yeah.
Carrie Ann Moss is just doing wonders with
Oh
that
yeah,
character. It's really great.
she really,
Um,
yeah, she really sells that character. So
I think my biggest concern is how they how they deal with Trish from here on out.
mhm.
Maybe I shouldn't be too concerned because at least these showrunners, unlike the ones on Iron Fist, seem to recognize that Trish done bad.
Yeah,
Um, they seem to recognize that she's really awful now, and she's going to have a long way to go to redeem herself if she does. So,
especially towards Jessica Jones, because they have
and
basically,
Malcolm, yeah,
yeah, and Malcolm, they have basically, she burned her bridges real bad,
yeah,
and so she's going to show up in Jessica Jones season 3. We know that, but it's probably going to be in a more antagonistic role, at least in the first part of the season.
yeah. I mean, the most
That
obvious thing is Jessica Jones ends up taking a case, and whatever it is turns out to be, the Hellcat of Hell's Kitchen, and it turns out to be Trish.
yeah.
That's like so obvious. I hope that's not what it is, but
Or maybe they decide to do a Daughters of the Dragon series with
Colleen Wing and
Colleen Wing
the
and
Metal Arm,
Misty
Misty
Knight,
Knight.
yeah,
That's
and then they bring in Hellcat into that into that group. I don't know. Maybe
maybe they work to take down Hellcat because she's just beating the snot out of people.
Yeah, and then and then they eventually, and then in the end they all team up or whatever. That might be a fun way of doing it without having her deal directly with Jessica Jones immediately after.
Yeah, because if that relationship ever gets repaired, that's going to take time. And what I think really works is, even though all these characters make genuinely horrible, awful choices, I believe the choices they made.
Oh yeah,
I think that's why this show works so well for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Even the final, and I won't spoil it, but the final choice that Trish makes, which basically destroys her relationship with Jessica, that was definitely the wrong choice. At the same time, I completely bought that she made it.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that was and that's something that lacks in a lot of, like in Daredevil. You don't really have that kind of selling of the character motivation and their choices, especially in season 2, because Daredevil just kind of he burns his bridges. He burns his bridges, and it just doesn't make any sense why.
Well, he's dead now, so he gets to start over.
Yeah. So we'll see how season 3, because they're currently filming season 3, right?
Or is I'm pretty sure they're doing that. Luke Cage 2 is the next one. I know they're filming that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if it's Luke Cage that comes first or season 3 of Daredevil that comes next. I don't remember.
Think it's Luke Cage because I know they're filming that.
Yeah,
because I've seen set pictures of.
I think Punisher season 2 is.
Casting, I don't know if they started filming that. Yeah,
it's in pre-production, and then Iron Fist is going to be showing up in Luke Cage season 2. But I don't think they're going to have it. As far as I'm aware, they don't have a Iron Fist season 2.
I don't know if it's in any form of pre-production, but I've heard talks about it, and I'm like, man, you've got so much course correction to do. Like, I don't know, kill him off and have someone else.
Maybe his character will be redeemed as a character in our eyes, not so much as a character in the show, but in our eyes, maybe he'll be redeemed a bit in Luke Cage, and then he'll be able to better carry a show. Or they just, after Luke Cage, they just decide to do a Heroes for Hire show next.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Chaos says Iron Fist season.
Oh yeah, it was confirmed. Yeah, but as far as we're aware, it's not in production yet.
But so was a Friday the 13th television show, and I still haven't seen that. So. But Jessica Jones season 2, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Not flawless. I mean, I could certainly find some nits to pick, but here's an interesting observation. But by golly, there's a lot of sex in that show.
Oh yeah, that was one of the things that kind of, and I guess it kind of fits her character and everything.
It does.
Yeah, there was multiple sex scenes between multiple different people.
Let's see. Jones has one in the bathroom with a random dude.
Yeah.
One with the landlord.
Yeah.
Trish has at least one with her newsbow guy.
Yeah, her boyfriend, and then
one with Malcolm, and another one which, well, they fall in the bed, but it's not a full scene, I don't believe.
Yeah.
Jerry's got a 2.
Yeah.
So that's 6. It's a 13 episode series. So
yeah. And and then Malcolm, I don't think, other than with Trish, he doesn't have any scenes, but he does wake up with at least one or two people. I forget.
Yeah, he wakes up next to one woman, and then he goes out into the hallway, and a different woman comes out saying, "Hey, are you coming back to bed?" And that whole thing where he's on some dating roulette site or something becomes an actual really funny plot point in which she finds out where he is by calling all of his online dates and saying, because he's on this dating service that says, this girl is 150 feet from you. Yay! Hook up now. So Jessica Jones ends up pulling up all the profiles and calling all of these women and say, "Hi, you don't know me, but can you look on your dating app and tell me how far away from you Malcolm is right now?" And so she
uses it to triangulate his position.
That is so great. There's
a
lot more detective work in this.
Yeah. And Malcolm does a lot of detective work too, and that's something great, because they in one scene where Trish and Malcolm are trying to find a specific character, Malcolm opens up Jessica Jones's laptop because he has access to it because they work together, and finds out that she has pictures of this guy, and they're like, "Well, do you know where this is?" Well, let me see if she turned off her location data before she took these pictures, and it's like, there it is. And and then he does other things too. Like he has a few other scenes as well where he does some detective work. Like he does some undercover stuff for Jerry and a few other things. But he's really invested in private investigation, and I think that's really cool that he's had that that change from season 1 where he was just Jessica's druggy neighbor. And so I'm glad they've pulled him in as a redeemed character, I guess you could say.
Yeah, or someone who's at least
trying to do
but he's also kind of moving in some dark directions with what he's willing to do and the people he's associating with. And I think that's most clear when he's on that college campus talking to an old flame of his. And it's this really touching, sorrowful scene. And then at the end, you realize he stole her student ID, and it's like, was all of that bull just to get the student ID?
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably, people are complex. It's probably a combination of both, but Malcolm, you might be slipping there, buddy. Great stuff. I also really liked it. This could have been so hokey and not worked at all, but Kilgrave coming back for episode 10 or 11 really worked for me. And I think what really worked is he is dead. He's just kind of a figment of her imagination.
Yeah, it's a visualization of her dark side.
Yes.
And her conflicted nature. It's like the driving, what drives her to make the bad choices she does.
Yes.
And David Tennant, it makes me feel bad that he's dead as a character, because he's so good in the role.
Yeah.
But it's one of those characters. It's like you really can't do anything with. Once you get, and it's he did. Season 1 was great. He was a great foil for Jessica, but really the end of season 1 was the only way to end that, because just locking him in a prison would never work. So it's just, that's just the way it had to end.
Yeah.
So,
and season 2 are the direct repercussions of the way it had to end, and it's not all rosy. But really why that so worked for me and what kept it from being hokey, I think, is they made the correct choice in writing Kilgrave as her thoughts, not Kilgrave. I mean, he is very clearly not Kilgrave. He is explicitly, clearly her thoughts. And I think that's especially exemplified in an exchange she has with him where he's trying to convince her to kill someone. And he says, "Oh, come on. You've done it before. And besides, this person deserves it." And she says to him, "Like you?" And he goes, "Yes, exactly like me. I deserved it." And it's like, Kilgrave would never say that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's Jessica saying that. And that's why that worked. Really, really well written.
And then there was the other scene where she was in that hotel room with Kilgrave, and Kilgrave was just telling her what to look for, and it was just and the thoughts were leading up to you can find this guy to kill him, but but the thing is just him vocalizing her thought process as a detective in that scene was just a lot of.
It's a great way to get around internal monologues, even though there is some Jessica Jones narration. They could have done that, and it would have.
Yeah.
But it was a great way to have Jessica by herself, but still be able to talk and interact with someone, even though she's technically interacting with herself.
Yeah.
Worked really well. So I was very impressed with Jessica Jones season 2. So kudos to all involved. I thought it was good. And we've been talking for 2 hours.
So yes, we have. Stop. So we won't get into Justice League. I'm sorry.
and our viewer count has stayed the same throughout the entire show. So you're all listening to this, really?
Thank you, guys.
Wow. I hope you found our chat interesting. And,
yes.
Yeah. And so let's plug our stuff and get out of here. Andrew Eisen here. Eisen is how you spell the last name. Plug it into YouTube and you'll find my YouTube videos. Recently, I've been doing Monster Hunter videos called Leslie and Bob Hunt, whatever the hell they're hunting. Tomorrow I'll release Leslie and Bob Hunt Deviljho, and that will probably be it for a while for Monster Hunter, because no new monsters so far as I know. So, but if Capcom releases new monsters, Leslie and Bob will come out of retirement.
You should make Yakuza videos where you just play all the mini games.
Yeah, Kiryu plays darts.
Kiryu
goes bowling.
Kiryu buys porn for a kid in an alley.
There you go. And follow me on Twitter at Andrew Eisen. Zachary, plug away.
All right, you can follow me on Twitter at Easy Night, where I talk about video games and politics and movies and TV shows that I watch and everything else. You can follow my game development work, DK_gaming, and DivineKnightGaming.com. And if you're just interested in the Oklahoma game development scene, you can check out OK Game Devs on Twitter and OKGameDev.com.
All right, that's it for us. We actually covered some topics this week, so that was nice. And we will see you all back here next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.